All right. So what pod are we starting first?
Jared's pod.
Jared's pod. Is that the name of the episode?
The pod that Jared stirred.
Go into your topic. You brought it up.
So
We're live.
Wait. Hold up.
No, we're not live.
Oh no, what happened? It just disappeared? Good to go.
All right, Jared. What was that pod you were stirring?
Let's go.
All right, let's go.
Before we paused.
Yeah, I'll ask the question and have you guys answer. Define biblical modesty.
You got to start with your opinion first.
My opinion first.
What are you searching for? What kind of answer are you searching for? Like, how should a man or woman dress?
Either that or in general.
To me, that's key, though, because you always, the talks we had in Arkansas, you were always leaning that the women had to dress more modesty than the men.
Ooh.
I don't.
In modern times, Jared?
I know. But no, I think I obviously believe both, obviously. But I think it comes down to your relationship overall with the Lord and seeing that what that looks like in your personal walk with the Lord, in a sense. Because I might have a completely different view than Kit.
Okay, so what do you have? What is your view? Is the knee too much?
No.
Down to the ankles.
The lower patterns too much, dude. Don't check yourself because your parents might be watching, too.
No. I'm thinking.
Do you notice a difference between here and in Brazil? Kind of curious.
Yeah, there is way more.
Way more
Skin.
Well, it's hot.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there's way more worldly influence as well.
Well, here's my question off of that, though. Like,
So,
do you think we in the United States prioritize that sex symbol more than other countries? Because, like, other countries, I think they don't look at the human body like we look at the human body. If that makes any sense.
And what about the Middle East, where they have just as much heat, and they're in full
Yeah.
black gowns?
I think
wherever they.
us as a nation sexualize more stuff than other nations, personally. I
Or
could
you-
be wrong.
Or you get a tribe in the middle of the Amazon. They're not
Brazil
wearing
is
nothing.
very,
Mm-hmm.
very so much described.
I mean, we gotta kind of have like a.
And then there's you just mentioned my uncle works in the Amazon region. He just passed away this May, but they just have covers on their lower parts.
Yeah.
Um,
Is that immodest? Is that biblically
So-
immodest?
that's where I come to the question: is it cultural? Because for me to go say to them that they're wrong of not covering, I would personally say it's wrong because they grew up their whole lives in that scenario, and to them, I don't think they sexualize in a sense.
You mean it's not wrong?
Yes, to me, it would be wrong for me to say that they're wrong,
Okay.
and they should cover in a sense.
But where's the whole Adam and Eve story coming? They walked around naked the whole time, and all of a sudden they ate from the tree of knowledge, and they're like, "We got to cover it because we're naked."
But
There's
what did they cover?
Yeah, exactly.
We don't
No.
know.
Oh, we do know. Absolutely do know.
Yeah. What?
They put loin coverings on. And it wasn't distinguished between male and female. It was just covering their loins. And I actually want to make sure I
So
have it
that's
right.
bottom then, right?
A spot.
Still haven't gotten it to like.
So far, we're just stuck at modesty is up to the opinion of the culture.
Sure.
So far.
Yeah.
But you would have some people that say you can't be part of the culture because that's worldly, and you're not supposed.
Well, there's like so many questions that go into this.
Yes.
Because it is like, in England, because they wore long dresses, ankles were extremely sexually sought after. So a woman's ankles, it was like, whoa.
Woman's feet.
Exactly. Yeah. And so you go, okay, well, if in that culture they were like that, but now it's not like that at all. So there isn't like a in between what do people find attractive at the time, and also what I think it has to be a little bit cultural in a sense.
I feel like in the States it's hard too because we have all the countries in one.
Yeah.
So we have a mixture of all types of people.
So what's a common Brazilian dress
Oh,
that would be immodest here but's normal there, or is it immodest there?
Nothing. He's like, it's horrible there.
it is. It goes both ways as well, I would say. Dresses that basically show more of the body parts than normal dresses. It is more prevalent in Brazil.
Okay.
My whole rebuttal to him always was like, why is the girl's length on your things, like on your mind, but then guys are not on your mind? Because he thought it's fine for dudes to walk around because girls aren't attracted to features on men like guys are attracted.
That's also not true.
Exactly. he didn't 100% agree with me.
Nothing.
So okay,
I try to be
it's
so
showing-
modest right now.
Yeah.
My thing on this whole thing, I always bring up Job 31.
If it's
Like, I
showing
made a
body
covenant with my
parts,
own.
I mean, I don't know. I feel like obviously you're making a covenant between yourself and the Lord, but on the other verse, it talks about not being a stepping stone for your brother or sister.
That's a good one.
So what is that in between there?
I don't know if you could ever
Not in. So I don't expect the world.
point at me when you say the world.
No, I just like the world to fall into that category. I'm more
We're talking
saying
about Christians. Or
Yeah.
believers.
Christians,
Right.
believers, possibly more in church itself, but like in the work with the Lord in general.
No, what church itself? Why would church be different than outside of church?
because that's what the believers are.
Yeah, that's where they congregate.
You're talking about like, you're not talking about like you should wear something more covering in church than outside of church.
No,
I see what you're saying.
I mean,
Alright, I took that wrong.
if
Okay.
that's what you're doing,
Yeah, that's why I asked that question, because I understood you wrong.
then yeah,
But a stumbling block for one person could
it's
be
different
so
for
much
the
different.
other one.
So might as well just go into Middle Eastern garb and just go.
Go all out.
Potato sacks.
Here's the greater question is, why do you feel like you have to subvert women
No,
to their dress based on
I
your
would say both.
temptations?
I would say both.
Yeah.
Because if I have to tell a woman, hey, this is too hard for me, you need to dress like this.
Yeah.
Isn't that a heart problem on my end?
Yeah, I would say so.
Sure.
Crazy that you're flipping now, because that talk we had back in the day, you said men were different.
Yeah, my view at that point was that
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's crazy that you're the opposite way now.
not completely
So I-
opposite,
I
but
chipped away a little bit.
more of a thinking aspect.
Want to go into the other topic we had with leggings?
Smile on your face. Dude. Do you,
That pot.
so there's a Bible verse that talks about women's dress. It's 1 Timothy 2:9. And it says, also the women are to dress themselves in modest clothing, with decency and good sense, not with elaborate hairstyles, gold, pearls, or expensive apparel, but with good works, as it is proper for a woman who professes the worship of God. So a lot of it comes into too, where it's like showing off your riches, or so there's things that might appear modest to us, like really nice dresses or gold or jewelry, but in the same sense, that can be someone showing their pride. So what's interesting about this, the way God's kind of talking about it, is not so much so about women dressing modestly because we're sexually perverse, but women dressing modestly so that they don't be prideful.
I didn't think too high of themselves, or
Or compare with one another.
But let's just say they're dressing the way they want, modestly, and they don't think there's a problem with it.
Yeah.
But then Jared comes along. It's like, nah, that's way too much.
Or too little.
Is it? Yeah. It's
Usually too little. Yeah.
Where's the line? Like, I guess is the question.
yeah,
Unless that is the standard is.
Yeah.
Pride on the female's part or male's part for that matter.
Because
Or is it the stumbling block part?
Sure.
there is some men and women out there with features that, like, no matter what they wear, they're going to be visible.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what is then modest to them? That's why I always say it's a big circle. You're like, it's
Yeah.
going to go around and you're never going to come up with, like, a clear answer. I kind of think it's what's in your heart.
Yeah.
that's what I personally come down to, is what before the Lord on how.
But ladies can be just as sexually attractive in a pair of jeans as a pair of Daisy Dukes.
Oh yeah.
So,
It's true. It's true.
so an attractive woman is going to be an attractive woman regardless
Sure.
of what brand of clothing or what she's wearing. So that can't just be the option.
Yeah. I think that's why like one of the fruits of the spirits is self-control. It's like if lusting and envy, and it can get into, I think David's a perfect example. It wasn't like Bathsheba was purposely being inappropriate. She was on her roof sunbathing. He lusted after her.
Yeah.
He took the initiative. It wasn't her fault for being naked. It was his fault for looking at her naked. And then going to the full extent of bringing her over, killing her husband, and doing all those other things.
Minor details.
Minor details. I don't need to worry about
He
those.
looked at her naked. He looked at her naked in a
Lustfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think that's also something in Christianity where we attribute the temptation to sin. Temptation isn't sin. It's how you respond to it. And David's response was, I want her, she's mine. And so if I look at a woman, I'm like, wow, she's hot. It's what do I do with that after? Wow, she's extremely attractive, super sexy. I don't know. What do you want me to say?
No, you're good.
Yeah,
But
my church has said it's not wrong for you to have that temptation when you see the woman,
yeah,
but it's to look away from that.
exactly.
If you keep on looking, you're gonna.
I only brought up that you can't say that because we've had talks before of like what is technically lusting. Is me saying a girl is hot lusting? I think we came down to like wording it that way was not the correct way. You're supposed to say like pretty or something, but I'm like,
No,
Does it matter?
that term does not.
we all know what you're gonna say when you're saying the girl's pretty. We all know what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
meaning.
Yeah.
So like that too goes into it. It's like then the whole lust game comes in, and it's like it's a heart again.
Absolutely.
It comes down to that.
You're a married man. Do you have anything to say about this?
Well, I'm also a married man.
You're also a married man. Yeah, these are the two married
Go
men.
ahead.
I'm not.
Ben's got a lot to say.
we can keep Dad's quiet streak going for a little bit. So my wife and I are the only two people for each other that we've ever been with.
Yeah.
And I want my wife to dress in a way that I find, I'll say it, sexually attractive, which isn't always just blue jeans or sweatpants and a sweatshirt. Like, I want her to dress attractive, and I want to go out to a restaurant, to a store, to church, and I want her to be attractive to me. And if that is wearing jean shorts in the summertime when it's 90 degrees out, I want her to do that. I find it attractive, and I want my wife to be attractive. If somebody else then views my wife as a stumbling block because she's wearing jean shorts, which is attractive to me, which I want her to look attractive, that person needs to check themselves, not my wife check herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had that brought
When
up.
you say attractive, you mean just attractive or sexually attractive?
I want to be sexually attracted to my wife. I want her to be sexually attractive.
My
You're not saying it's a prideful thing either. You're
my
not
view-
trying to show her off.
No,
You're just
And I-
keeping it for yourself.
this
I
is
could
this
be
is
wrong here, but
this is
my view of that particular scenario was always,
keep that behind locked doors.
Keep it in the bedroom.
yeah, like attractive, no, but sexually attractive, keep that in between you and your wife, in a sense.
that's fair, but I don't want my wife to be dressing unattractively when we're just going to Walmart or going to the grocery store or going on a date. I want to look at my wife, and I want to pursue her, and I want to want her.
Yeah.
And I don't want somebody else, especially in the church, getting on my case, getting on her case just because they're having a problem with their own eyes. And I've only ever been with Alora. She's only ever been with me. We are pure in our marriage. We're not defiled by anybody else before our marriage. I think that should be celebrated, not shunned just because someone else doesn't want to see my wife in jean shorts or a crop top. If you can't look at a belly button or a square of someone's back and not stumble, that's on you. That's not on my wife or on me.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is too, like, it's not that she's dressing horrifically unmodestly. Like, if she walked in with lingerie into church and you're like, I find her sexually attractive,
Obviously.
dude, vouch for us, it'd be like, okay, bro, Ken, you got a problem here. I think we need to talk about
There's
this.
no goodness.
No,
Yeah.
but her wearing clothes that you find nice, I think that's of course a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is,
And I want to go to the beach with her, and I want her to wear a 2-piece, which is also culturally norm. The cultural norm is 95% of ladies are wearing 2 pieces. So it's not like it's outside of the norm. It's not, we're not going to church in that, but we are going to a public place where that is the norm. She's not doing anything outside of the norm, and I want to look at her. And again, I think those things should be celebrated, not shunned, or I don't know, looked down on, disgrace, whatever term you might want to put to it.
he's the married man. I can't. I think it's kind of inarguable, because it's like the only thing I can say is, if you're purposely trying to be a stumbling block to someone, then it's like, obviously. And if I think if you know that there's someone like your friend came up to you and was just like, hey dude, like, I think your wife's really hot. But that would, even in saying that, I wouldn't have him as a friend. I'd be like, okay, you need to go check yourself out, dude.
So I have a question. Would that scenario change though if you had a daughter?
Is my daughter in her 20s and married, and
that's fair.
Her husband is the only man she's ever been with, and he's the only one she's ever been with?
No, not married, but she's home.
She's 15?
Yeah.
In what scenario?
In the same scenario of modesty and wise, but she's not dressing in the same scenario as your wife would be to locations and stuff. Yeah, I don't know how.
Can I just, I think part of the problem is like, in culture, we use clothing and we use things to be attractive, to find a mate.
I was just about to bring that up.
It's almost like a peacock feather kind of thing, where it's like, hey, I'm dressing clean, I'm dressing nice so that, but I think if our hearts are like Jesus, we'll find modesty attractive. And so I think that's where, like, I don't think a Christian should find the cultural norm attractive. We should find modesty attractive. And so it's like changing and switching our heart. And so with Kent and Alora, it is modesty, it's within marriage.
Yeah.
So to him, those things are within a modest frame. But for us, if I'm walking out and I'm like, the only thing that I find attractive are women who are trying to be attractive and trying to be sexual, I think that's a heart problem on my end, where I need to reorient and go, I should be attracted to modesty.
Yeah. Well, I think it's both. I think you'd be attracted to my wife's modesty as well as her sexuality in a way. Because she wasn't promiscuous before marriage, that is attractive. That was her being modest. She saved herself for me and I for her. So that is an attractive piece in a woman. And if my wife ever, God forbid, passes away and I have to go into the dating scene again, the modesty and the saving yourself for marriage will be on the top, like the priority list, which I will find attractive.
Right.
Again, also looking at the appearance and the beauty of someone's appearance also plays a role.
Yeah.
But you can definitely still find a modest woman to be attractive.
Yeah. And if I'm dressing so that I can be sexually attractive, then maybe I'm the problem.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where you kind of like, it's getting to know the girl a little bit, where it's like, are you doing this because you're trying to be sexually attractive?
Yeah.
And is that someone worth your time to be with? Yeah.
I mean, it all stems from the heart.
Yeah.
Is where their walk with the Lord is. Scenario. But
all right, Dad, you didn't jump in, but you're also a married man.
Yes.
A couple things go through my mind. One was, do prostitutes dress the way they dress for nothing? What's their intent? I think that's the heart thing that you were talking about. And on the male side, I remember when we went to Poland, I show up at this youth camp, and we're going to be there for 2 weeks, and I go to the pool, and they had just changed from their communist rule to all of a sudden change. It literally had just changed like the week prior. And so they were still under a pretty strict sense of that concern about the communist government and all, and being watched and all. So when we went to this Olympic pool to swim, we had to swim time. I went with my normal bathing suit trunks, and I show up, and the females are all in their 2 pieces, and the guys are in their Speedos. And so I was like, all right, I'll probably just bow out of this whole thing. And somebody said something about I was going to leave, and they said something about my bathing suit. The head, like, lifeguard person in control And so I was like, it's not a problem at all. They weren't going to let me in the pool. So
Oh wow.
I was at
Because you were wearing swim trunks?
some trunks. Yeah.
Wow.
Because they want to
would've
make
left
sure
too.
that you're not hiding anything is what my impression is.
Okay.
So that's my understanding of it. So I was like, it's not a problem at all. I can go, whatever. The main guy that we knew went over to this other guy, whatever. He came over to me and he's like, you're all set now. You can get in. And I said, no, I don't need to get in. I can't remember that guy's name right now, and he's like, get in the pool. I'm like, okay. I dove in the pool, swim, and I was out and I left. But whatever authority structure they were under right then, he convinced that guy to let me get in or whatever. And it was like, get in, do it. And so I did and got out of there. But the environment was, again, that culture was different. And yeah, go ahead.
So
I'm sure you do, Jared.
no, not me. I would never. Brazilians are big into it. But I was in California in 2018 working out there with the same company I was working for now. But I was at a hotel. They had a swimming pool and then they had a hot tub. I was there with my sister and my brother-in-law. And I'll never forget because I was in the States, so I was like, there's no way there's any Brazilians. I don't know why I thought that there at the location. But so I was swimming in the swimming pool and then I got in the hot tub with my sister and my brother-in-law. And there's this guy comes out with a Speedo and jumps in the swimming pool. And the first thing is like, I'm there talking to my sister, making fun of the dude. Or be like, why in the world is he wearing Speedo? And then not to think in Portuguese, saying all this in Portuguese, a little bit louder than I should have. And then the guy comes up to the hot tub and starts speaking Portuguese. And it was the most embarrassing time I've ever had in my life. My sister made fun of me so much because of it, because she was like judging him hardcore. Little did he know he spoke Portuguese the whole time and understood you.
He was like, dude, I'm coming over this guy and teaching him a lesson.
That's hilarious.
But
All right, keep going. Yeah. So you're in Albania. You got in the pool.
So anyway, that was Poland.
Poland.
I got in Poland, yeah. Anyway, so the other thing I think about when I was younger, and when I was thinking about the girls that were in my high school at the time, and I knew that the ones who would tend to be the more flaunting were ones that I was really interested in. It wasn't that, and I can say your mom was, I would say, very, very attractive, very modest, but there was no way she could hide her inner beauty, from my own opinion. And she never showed, anything inappropriately, in my own opinion. And I think that in the long run caught my eye. Now, she might not necessarily claim that, all the time. Maybe she would have said that was her in school or whatever. But so I do know that I've heard said, this is not a Bible verse whatsoever, but what you catch a guy with, you got to keep him with. And and if it's all about the physical and it's not the inner heart and all that, definitely because you're not going to keep that physical strength with the young men or the attractiveness with a young lady when you get into your old age, it's very difficult. So I think I'll have you read your passage again that you read in Timothy there.
Yeah.
But it says, this is in 1 Peter, in the same way you wives, you were speaking of husband and wives, so I realize this is a different context. Be subject to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won without a word by the conduct of their wives, as they, the husbands, observe your pure conduct with fear. Your adornment must not be merely external. Nothing wrong with, being modestly dressed well, but again, that doesn't sum up all of who you are as a woman, and in this case, a wife. Braiding the hair and wearing gold jewelry or putting on garments. but let it be the hidden person of the heart with the incorruptible quality of a lowly and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God. For in this way, in former times, the holy women also who hoped in God used to adorn themselves, being subject to their own husbands. Just as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, you have become her children if you do good, not fearing any intimidation. You husbands, in the same way, live with your wives in an understanding way, as with a weaker vessel, since she is a woman, and show her honor as a fellow heir of the grace of life, so that your prayers will not be hindered. It goes on. So it doesn't fit perfectly, but I think what he's saying is there is a priority to be put on the hidden person of the heart, the character, your relationship with the Lord, the fruit of the Spirit that is being cultivated in your heart. What is that going to look like in your dress? So that, for me personally, I think I mentioned this to somebody when we were coming, and I picked her up, and I was bringing her home one time during a break of hers, and her folks had given me permission to go pick her up. And I was bringing her home, and I was asking her questions about how she viewed life in her future, because I didn't think we would ever get married. And I realized this is the one. The way she was answering the questions, not the way she was dressed. The way she answered her questions, that's what convinced me that this was the wife that God would have for me. And even though I considered my wife perfectly suited to me, both, in the way God made her as a person, but also physically, both then and now. And so now if you go into our bedroom, we have that little sign over there that says, roll together with me, the best is yet to be. And there's been times we've been able to say, look, I realize we're not what we were when we get married, physically speaking, but that's okay. This is the stage of life that God has us at. Let's be faithful at that. And so all that we're talking about a lot of times is somewhat of a little bit of a temporary, but because it is fleeting. And so does it fall on in most cases, we would say the male's dwelling, not overly dwelling, because there's no question I take out groups regularly, and they're younger college age students, and I have to be very conscious of that, and I have to discipline myself to never dwell, and it just has to be the case. And can I turn that, if there is any type of a interest that way, into thoughts about the wife that God has given me, and how can I then do something that would be an indication of my love for her in those cases, rather than letting myself run with the potential of lust. How can I turn that into loving my wife, even though I may not be right there right then? And so the other key thing was mentioned, I can't remember who mentioned it, was what if you had a daughter? What about your daughters? Because very possibly you guys are going to end up maybe having daughters, and you and your wife having those conversations ahead of time so that you're sort of prepared where this is going to go, what it's going to look like, and I think you will, together, the three of you, your wife and the Lord, will come to a conclusion of what will be most appropriate for you to glorify him, to represent him well, wherever you happen to be in your culture, in your time of life, and all. So I don't know that God gives us a perfect, that word modesty just seems to fit so well.
Yeah. It's almost like he keeps it vague.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we would be like, but
I checked the box.
Yeah,
I got it.
exactly.
I'm there,
Yeah.
Now, my question off of that, right?
So there was one more thing I thought of. There have been times where I said to Cindy something about her dress, or I mentioned.
Really?
Whoa.
Yes. So
Just got serious.
and I don't mean it in a bad way, because women don't look at it the same way as we do. So
I was going to ask you, is mom naturally modest in her So even going to like, go to Alton Bay as a kid, you go to like the beach part of that lake. I don't think I've ever seen mom wear like any kind of like swimsuit of any kind, or any low cut dress or any of that stuff. Was that a discussion you guys had in your marriage and your time together? Have you ever asked her to put something else on because of a way that she might have been viewed or perceived by somebody if you guys went on a date or anything like that? Was those ever conversations you guys had, or was she just naturally, for the, common term, modest?
Yeah. I think mostly I would give her the credit that she usually would be the one that, I just didn't have to, really be. I mean, she would wear her bathing suits to the beaches and all that, but if they were, even in that, she always worked diligently to have a modest bathing suit. And then there was a couple times she'd put something on and say, no, just can't do this on her own. She would realize, and then it was very seldom that I would mention. I just think that's a little too revealing.
From mom, do you think it was because it made her uncomfortable, or that's the way that she was showing you love because it would make you uncomfortable if you were there in a public setting?
You're saying, was she modest to preserve your relationship, or was she modest because that's who she is as a person?
Was mom doing that as a way to show you love even though you weren't there, or was it she was just it was uncomfortable for her, so she chose that for herself? Or
I don't really.
it could
Do
be
you
the
think
same
you could
thing.
even answer that though?
No.
Yeah, she needed
No,
to be
but
here.
I'm asking about my
I
mom's
think
person.
Laura should have been here for this one too.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of like learn of mom's personality. Is her personality? Which one?
I actually would be interested to hear her perspective, but I think maybe she has changed through the years, some, a little bit. It's like it does seem that women sometimes, when they're insecure, and they haven't necessarily completely embraced the way God has made them. Now maybe they've contributed to it themselves, and sometimes it's the way God has made them, that they don't have a view of themselves that's necessarily the view that God would want them to have. And so they get a little bit desiring to show off some of their femaleness in order to be able to maybe help with that perspective that they have of themselves, and maybe how they feel other people are viewing them. And so they may feel they need to show some of their feminineness more. But I think I can't speak for them completely.
Yeah.
But at least, I think that would be something that mom would have to be giving her thought on it.
I don't know. In my aspect, it's like showing things you wouldn't want to show other men other than your husband.
So you're saying Kent's in the wrong for saying what he said earlier?
He probably disagrees. I don't think he wouldn't say I'm in the wrong.
Not in the wrong.
Oh.
Disagree.
It's my
Your opinion.
my thought about it.
So with that, as we go out into society or church or everything, we're in the wrong when we have a conversation about like, oh, they're wearing something that shouldn't be, right? Or are we not in the wrong?
Wait, well,
We're sitting there judging them because we personally think they're wearing something that's not modest. So are we technically in the wrong for that?
for other Christians, you say?
Anytime. Because we've gone out places before and
Well, you can't have like
you can't do it at the worldly.
yeah. I'm not necessarily judging them either. I mean, if I see something, I tend to look away.
Yeah.
It's just my
Yes.
And then Cody says, Jared, look at that.
Well, I guess this is probably my question for you, is that we're in the dating phase, and so I want my future wife to be attracted.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of have to recognize her beauty
Mm-hmm.
at some point. So I think it's odd to be so concerned about finding someone attractive. It's what I do with that afterwards. You know what I mean? So like, if I'm walking into church and I'm like, which girl is attractive? You know, and I'm like searching for it, Now I'm being a predator. That's kind of creepy. You're being a
in
weirdo.
the dating aspect, that's not what I go for in general.
Right. You don't
Like,
you don't look for
I
that.
try to tend to see who they are as a person before I even am attracted to them, which is weird.
Yeah.
But it's critical.
But it is.
But you also, I don't think you would talk to a person in the aspect of trying to date them or talk to them to get to know them in that aspect, unless you had some type of attraction to them.
No, I can be friendly.
So you're saying I would rather be friends with everyone first, grow a relationship, and then decide if I find them attractive. Not I walk into a room, I find them attractive, I go seek them out, and then start a conversation.
Yes,
Okay.
that's my personal.
Yeah.
And it's harder
when I-
because of that.
Yeah, I remember
You're
when I
better-
was in
you're better.
school, there was a lot of attractive girls, but I wasn't interested in any of them to be married to them.
Yeah.
Well,
They were all
See,
like
but
beautiful
there's
women.
My thing with
But
that
it's
is like,
not
how do you
beautiful
know you
women.
want to pursue somebody in a dating aspect if you're not attracted to them a little
Well, I'm worried that me and Cody are on the same page. No. But no, I think that if I'm counting someone out because they're attractive, that shows me how bad my heart is. Because I'm like, I don't know anything about their heart, but I'm like, they're hot. And so there's something wrong with them. I'm going to go look for a modest girl. Where it's like, they could just honestly be really attractive. And so that's where I'm like, I think it's okay for me to find someone attractive and want to pursue that. It's what I do with it.
Yes.
I don't
the
think that's
thought.
wrong. No.
So with you, if I'm like walking into a room and I find a girl attractive, I'm going to go talk to her.
Same.
And I don't think
that's wrong.
cool.
I personally like to build a relationship and not keep the focus on the attractiveness.
Sure.
Jared's in the vast minority there.
Yeah. Well, usually,
But I do think that's critical because this person, you're going to live with them for the rest of your
Because
life.
if I'm focusing too much on attractiveness, I might
That's right.
tend to be a little biased on their
personality.
personality or convictions and things and let it slide.
Yeah.
And you won't be
That's
able to let
where
it slide when you get married.
I don't feel, I feel like if I go up to
That's just me.
an attractive person and I talk to them
Somebody at church, right?
and their personality doesn't match, I think someone instantly becomes unattractive when their
Oh, yeah.
personality doesn't match.
Yes,
their
Yeah.
for sure.
And so, yeah, I think I think that is the best way to go. But I also feel, even in that sense, you're almost dating before you're dating. And this is something I see Christians do.
I do.
It's like, oh, I'm kind of dating this girl, and we're kind of flirting,
Oh, I hate dude. I hate
which
this.
also leads into not being guarded in your decision making. So, like, let's say there's a girl I find attractive. I want to pursue her. We go out on a date. I'm already set in knowing this is what my intent is, and this is what she knows my intent is. So now both of us can be guarded. Whereas if I'm doing the friend thing, I'm kind of being a little sneaky. I'm like, yeah, I find you kind of attractive, and I'm going to grow this friendship with you and kind of test you a little bit. To me, that feels, I feel it's less honest and a little bit underhanded than just being like, hey, I think you're pretty. Let's go out and talk. But I'm also more forward.
I
And
So
that's my personality.
here's the culture part.
That's
of it.
crazy that you say you're forward, because I always viewed you as a quiet, not forward type of person.
I don't make moves like that because I usually don't, because my mind isn't always thinking about people's attractiveness.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
because I do think I find modesty more attractive, I'm not always walking into the room being like if I walked into church every day and I'm talking to a new girl every day, or I walk into wherever I'm going and I'm always asking someone out, I think that's on my attractiveness scale. There's something wrong.
So again, the assumption in this particular culture is that we all make the determination of who our wife is going to be. So what about arranged marriages in the Bible?
Yeah.
How do we make that work?
Glad I wasn't in that generation.
Well, I
And
think,
me either. I'm all set.
what is that Bible verse?
I don't think there was actually true love there, though.
There was.
There could be, but I don't know.
I was thinking through it the other day. Actually, I don't remember exactly why I was thinking through it. But it seems like the concept of marriage for love is a much more modern concept. But then again, I was thinking but when Jacob pursued Rachel,
Yeah.
he was marrying for love. Well, obviously because she was absolutely stunning. So he then pursued her afterwards, but he was marrying because he was working for Laban because he wanted Rachel specifically, and he loved Rachel. And even when after he gets Leah as well, he's married to them both. He clearly loves Rachel in that the polygamous marriage that they had,
Yeah.
clearly loved Rachel and did not love Leah.
Yeah.
So he kind of married for love, but then again, this seems like for the most part, a lot of it was arranged, and it wasn't always for love. It was for reproduction. It was for, again, other cultures. It was for preserving bloodlines and all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And then Samson's parents, can't you get a wife from the Israel? Do you have to go to the Philistines?
Yeah.
And he says, get her for me.
So maybe in Jewish culture, the son did point out somebody that they wanted their father to arrange with the other father. Maybe it was more involved than we perceive it to be. I don't know why I was thinking about that. Thinking about it the other day, but I was like, you know what? Actually, early on, Jacob did pursue Rachel for love.
And I'm wondering if it is because of circumstance. Because if let's say I spent most of my life, this gets into a little bit of a deeper subject, but they're finding that because of porn usage, men are finding real women less attractive.
Desensitized.
They're desensitized. So the more you're looking and the more you're filling your brain with that, the less likely you are going to find someone attractive. And what you're talking about arranged marriages, they likely didn't deal with women ever. Like they were probably with their father working most of the time. They weren't going out and seeking after women. So I almost wonder if because their brains were so pure that anyone would have been attractive to them. And usually the parent was looking for someone to match their child, or like they were taking the time and effort into finding that match. So I think anyone would have been. And there was also divorce though. You have to remember that God said Moses allowed divorce because of your weakness.
Hardness of heart.
And hardness of heart. And so if I see a culture that was getting divorced in arranged marriages, that doesn't prove to me that it was actually a useful tool for marriage and that it was successful because they were getting divorced. But I can also see that if you're in a culture that's in extreme modesty, the likelihood of a guy just meeting a girl for the first time, he's like, let's go. Like, this is great. I have a girl now. So I think there's a little bit of that. So I think we're on the far end of the spectrum where we're so desensitized that it's hard for us to pick. And I think that they were probably on the other end of the spectrum where they had no relation with women at all. So they just accepted whatever they got, which I don't know if either, because both is lust. You're lusting after and not loving because you're just like, I have a female. And this over here is lusting after all these women and not, looking for the one. So I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
It's a quandary.
I knew for at least from me, the Lord was moving in my heart that I was looking for a wife that I was going to live with for the rest of my life. And so I said to my dad, I didn't think that I couldn't find any young lady that I really wanted to marry. They were all just, I felt spiritually immature, and they were interested in things that I thought were low-level things, and I wasn't finding them that they really had a heart for the Lord. Mm-hmm. They were consumed with getting the guy, having the relationship, attracting the guy, but I knew that God had made me to be someone to be married. So
right,
yeah, and so when it finally all came together with my wife, with Cindy, I was like, I finally found that person that I want to live the rest of my life with. And it was a combination of her personality, her physical features, and our backgrounds. So anyway, I personally would I would counsel you, and I'm not saying this is necessarily a chapter and verse, but I think the spirit of it is to realize that you're going to be living with this person for the rest of your life, and they're going to be living with you. And so I think it's important that you realize that. And the things that you brush aside as being maybe, it's okay, she's so attractive that I can let that go, will raise its ugly head in the future. And I think a woman who looks at us, let's pray that we're godly men who are growing spiritually so that they are really glad that they married us as the years go by.
Yeah. You want to end this episode after I ask this question?
Oh, after you ask that, I have one more question before
Okay.
we end the episode. So go. Yeah,
What about the tribe that was stealing their wives?
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, you answer your question first. So we kind of can get into the conversation of sovereignty when it comes to this too, because do you believe there's the one? Do you believe that
Great topic. Kit does not believe.
you believe you chose your wife?
Well,
that,
not that, but on the other aspect.
Yeah. So, and you just said
Always.
we need to look.
You don't believe it.
So, do I choose my wife, or does God choose my wife for me?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yes. The answer is yes.
The answer is both.
Both. I believe both. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think God's working.
Yeah.
Through all those.
Wait, what I missed? I was talking to Jared. You
Yeah.
you do believe in there is one person?
He believes that God and him chose his wife.
Oh, okay. All right. That's
I'm gonna be the devil's advocate and say, because I don't know how you guys feel, I'm gonna say that God chooses our wife, and I'm assuming you're on the end where you think you chose your wife.
Well, I kind of agree with that.
You think it's
And because of the wife
I
that
had to say.
when you finally are married, at that point, it's a done deal. That is the one when it happens.
Right.
When you've made the decision, no matter whether you question it later and you say, man, I maybe I shouldn't have done that. No, you almost have to cut those thoughts off. That is not an option for us anymore. This is now my wife. And I need to make that work.
So can I choose the wrong wife?
Can you choose the wrong wife?
And is that part of God's
That's a
plan
good
for me?
question.
Oh,
I've thought of that before.
No.
no. So you say you can go and marry anybody, and it,
As soon as you choose,
Because my
that you're making that commitment. So yes,
Yeah.
but because of you choosing that, would you have somebody else?
could
That
you have
was-
had
that
a-
God planned for you?
Could you? Well, if you picked that one, then she was the one that got
yeah.
that for you.
Yes, that's right.
So, because you picked, you kind of confirmed, in God's sovereignty, He knew what was going to happen. But could you have picked a better woman? Sure, you could have, but you didn't. Now you need to be committed to the one you do have.
Yeah, I believe you gotta be committed
So-
to the one you do have, but I don't know about that aspect.
But so you're saying because I chose her, I could have gone outside of God's will, and now I'm stuck with her? Or do you think God
I don't-
had me choose the wrong person to teach me something?
What's the
Hosea.
So I don't think. Oh, that's my next question. So I don't. You used the analogy before about. Do we actually? So do we have in God's plan? Did God just turn the clock and release it, and time goes, and things just happen as He planned, and we're just a part of it? So, did God set in stone that you will marry X, Y, Z person, or do you have the ability to pick between X, Y, or Z? And then any of which is in God's will, and He obviously knows what you will pick in the future, but you do have the freedom and the pleasure of picking one.
So God has a list.
No,
I think he has multiple avenues down his plan that are correct.
There's
what you're
4
kinda
billion.
saying.
There's 4 billion options, and you got whichever one you pick is.
The right one?
And like Josiah said when he was in high school, it's like guys were telling him, we got the whole ocean of females to choose from. You got a puddle.
That's true.
If you're only searching for a believing
Biblical,
spouse,
yeah.
But then that brings me to the Bible verses where, I think it was Abraham and Isaac, right? Where he said, go get my son a wife, do these things, and you'll know that she's from the Lord. So that's going into the arranged marriage thing where it's like, but that is also in Jesus's bloodline. So sometimes those kind of things can be a little bit more specific because Jesus had to come to fruition.
And then as he was going, he said, the Lord led me.
Yeah.
So the servant had to take the steps in obedience to what Abraham had said. And as that servant obeyed, the Lord led him on the journey. So that's why I think it's both, where yet at the same time, I believe in the sovereignty of God. And so, but that the way the sovereignty of God works is, I think what you're saying is that he allows us somehow this sense that we are making these decisions freely.
So was Rebecca the only woman in the world who would have done the things that Abraham told his servant to look for when looking for a wife for Isaac? Or had he waited, would another woman have done the exact same thing and he just happened to take Rebecca? I think option B, there would have been more than just one woman in existence who would have done those things for the servant. But Rebecca was the first, and then it fit the mold, and that's the one that he brought back for Isaac.
But it is speculation.
Right.
And so I think
Sure.
speculation, we have to be careful. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
am I wasting my time looking?
No.
I think God wants
You
us
can't get into a relationship. I hate that.
and enjoy
too.
that process.
People think like
enjoy the
some
journey.
People think it's like
Enjoy the journey.
God's gonna bring that woman into your life, and you're just gonna start going out. It's like you gotta take the steps to do it, dude. He might make that girl cross your path, but if you don't jump and go and do it, it's not gonna
Yeah.
work out.
And Proverbs, he finds a wife. It's like you're searching. Finds a good thing
So
and obtains favor from the Lord.
again, I'm not set in stone on this. I could have my mind changed, and I would love to hear your opinion. Is it actually a sin to marry an unbeliever? Or is it the best practice and the best thing for our lives to do such?
You should have got this topic when Megan was on.
So I'll start with myself.
Yeah.
As of right now, I'm saying no, it is not a sin to marry an unbeliever. Is it the best thing for my life? Absolutely not. We have direction and guidance from Scripture for the best way. And my reasoning for that would it be wrong for me to marry an unbeliever because there is a better way? It would be stupid of me to do such. So does that make it wrong? Maybe. Maybe I could get there. But, and I use Hosea as my example. God told him to marry the prostitute.
Right.
Clearly not a believer. So God would not tell him.
But was she at the time?
No, she was a prostitute.
But you don't know that. We don't know that
Right,
at the time.
But
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the evidence that's there, the evidence is no.
Yeah, God knew
But he knew
where the road would go.
So
Yeah.
she was not living like a believer. But God told him to marry her. God would not tell someone to do
I think
something
we're
that was a
assuming.
sin.
We're assuming at the time that he was.
With the evidence we're giving, she was a prostitute. And then even the evidence afterwards, she continued in her
And he had to
harlot
get her
ways.
back.
Yeah. So, and I understand the example, but if it was actually a sin, God would never have told Hosea to do a sin. So it wasn't a sin for him to marry an unbeliever. Was it the best thing? No. But in God's plan, he used that as a symbol of what we are, how we are acting, and how Christ will continually come back for us when we continually do the wrong thing, because she went back to the streets and continued to prostitute herself to other men. It doesn't matter. Either way, she went back.
He actively had to go out. I think he had to buy her again.
He had to buy his own wife back, the one that God told him to marry. Again, I understand the picture. That was what Israel was doing to God. They kept on leaving God. They kept on prostituting themselves to other nations. So I get the picture and I get the analogy and the need for it. But if it was actually a sin to marry, it would not have been commanded by God to do such.
Can I?
I don't.
You want to go?
I don't think it was an overarching command for all time. It was a specific instance that God approved of. When you get to the New Testament, though, it is. I think the clear instruction from the Lord is that how can light and darkness be blended together? And so the clarity of that passage is not to do it. And so if we willfully choose to go against the clear instructions of God's word, I would say that God would consider that a sin that we've committed. Now, he can work in spite of it. We can repent of that sin. Hosea's and Gomer's case was a unique case. Obviously, in the Old Testament, that was a different situation. But
yeah, I understand for him who knows what's the right thing to do and doesn't do it, to him it is sin. So we can kind of create our own sins by knowing the right thing to do.
There's two things. It's going to take us into another topic.
Which we can go on to the next episode with that second topic.
But this Bible verse says, "Do not be unevenly yoked with unbelievers."
Well, that's talking about business, though. I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's about business.
it's not strictly business.
It's not.
It's not strictly business.
It can be in business, but it continues on. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness? What according has Christ with Belial? Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? And so I can see what you mean, that it can relate to business, but
isn't the context in a business relationship?
No, it's just it's a general.
Yeah, everyone uses that, but when I looked at it, I was like, it pretty much only goes to why would you go into business with someone who pulls in a different direction? I get how it can tie into a marriage, because you don't want that. You don't want to be pulling in different directions. You don't want to raise your kids in different directions. You don't want to have a split religion in your household. It's just, because of all the problems. So it's best practice to do it the way that Scripture says. But is it a sin to do it?
There's no context before even talking about business.
There had to have been one of those.
The verse before, there's another passage about being unevenly yoked, but that one is about business.
Maybe that one was.
Yeah,
right.
This one is specifically just saying in general. Yeah, I don't. It doesn't say any exchange of money or any business things in the verses before.
Sorry for cutting you off. Continue.
No, you're good. Yeah, I that's kind of where I find myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. So
maybe you convinced me based off of the verse of, for him who knows what the right thing to do and doesn't do it.
I think that's even more valid. Yeah.
Do you think it could work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because later he says that if you find yourself married to an unbeliever and you get saved, don't leave.
Yeah, don't leave.
But if the unbelieving one wants to leave, let them go.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not bound in such cases. But
in the other instance, I mean, biblically, like marriage between Christians, you can see that there's struggle, and not having one be a Christian is going to be way more struggle.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're basically going willingly into more trouble.
I mean, the reality of it is you have children, and then how are you going to raise your children?
Yeah.
What's going to be the standard of measure? And generally speaking, the unbeliever is going to be, well, this is how I was raised. This is what I've learned in my classes. This is what I was taught. You go through these steps, and the believer is going to be saying, what does God's word say? What we need to abide by that. And there's not going to be unity on it.
Yeah.
And someone's going to have to give, and or it's going to break.
I'm starting to read some Bible verses. That kind of makes me. I think what you're saying is difficult because in the early church, everyone was newly saved. So most, if not all of them, had unbelieving partners. So it's hard to gauge. But in this verse, I can kind of see what you're saying. It says, this is in 1 Corinthians 7. To the rest I say, I, not the Lord, that if any brother has a wife who is an unbeliever, and she consents to live with him, he should not divorce her. If any woman has a husband who is an unbeliever, and he consents to live with her, she should not divorce him. For the unbelieving husband is made holy because of his wife, and the unbelieving wife is made holy because of her husband. Otherwise your children will be unclean, but as they are holy. But if the unbelieving partner separates, let it be so. In such cases, the brother or the sister is not enslaved to God, but God has called you. So now I guess you can pose the question, if I married an unsaved person, does our unity and our oneness grant her salvation?
No. That holiness is holiness is like you are unique, you're set apart, you're it almost ties in with sanctification. But it would not be salvation. In the same way, your children are going to be blessed by being around you as a follower of Jesus Christ. You are under the special hand, and you have the presence of the Holy Spirit within your life. The hand of God is in your life working, and that is going to overflow in blessings to your unsaved spouse and to your children both. And they are going to be uniquely ministered to in a way that they would not have been if the marriage was dissolved.
Right.
It's a holiness in that way. It doesn't mean salvific in that sense. Like, we have a holy God. He's unique, one of a kind, set apart. There are no other gods. There are no other capital G's that are equal with him. He's holy, set apart, separate. And I think in that case, you're a special marriage because you are there. You're affecting them in a way that it would not happen otherwise. It's unique, it's special, it's specific. They're, in a sense, benefiting from your sanctification, and your salvation.
We kind of have a theme now. Our theme has kind of been marriage the last 3 episodes.
Yeah.
Has it really?
Yeah, you missed
Wow.
that. You missed that last one.
You guys really want relationships. That's what's clear.
Cody took action after that.
Ken's helping you out.
All right. Well, we'll see what the topic is next week.
Sweet.